Every morning, without a single exception, before you are even awake, a system older than any technology you own has already been working on your behalf. The water in your tap, the electricity in your walls, the food that will reach your table tonight. None of it appeared, it was delivered. And the science behind that delivery, the planning, the sourcing, the movement, the precision, is one of the most complex systems human civilization has ever designed. We gave it a name: supply chain. Hi guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. I am Mr. Supply Chain. I've spent 14 years working inside that system. I have moved goods across 50 countries, hundreds of ports, and more than 30 industries. And what I found is that most people who work inside it do not fully understand it. Not because they are incapable, but because nobody has ever explained it at the level it deserves to be explained. So, Mr. Supply Chain is for you over here to change your world of supply chain. Your perspective of supply chain will be changed from today. Right now, at this exact second, tens of thousands of ships crossing the world's oceans, millions of trucks are moving across highways on every continent, and not one of them is moving by accident. Every movement, every container, every pallet, every package is the result of a decision made inside a system. Now, when I talk about the system, there is a global system and it has a name in academia which is called the SCORE model, the supply chain operations reference model. It comprises of 6 words: plan, source, make, deliver, return, enable, that describes every supply chain on earth. From a street vendor in Mumbai to a global pharmaceutical company, the SCORE model is the universal language of supply chain. This channel will make you fluent in it. We will go through plan, source, make, delivery, return, and enable in detail. We'll cover the entire global supply chain in this format. Because supply chain is not just a business function, it is the operating system of modern commerce. Once you change your or develop your perspective and start seeing in that way, you start noticing it everywhere. For example, under the oceans, fiber optic cables carrying the world's data. Across continents, pipelines are carrying silently the energy. Even in nature, a flock of birds migrating thousands of kilometers when food becomes scarce. Nature solving the same problem every supply chain manager faces. They ask questions like, how do I move from where resources are scarce to where they are available? I have been called at 2 a.m. because a truck broke down with a very important shipment at the port. I had to deal with it. I have sat in crisis calls with the CEOs asking for answers, while freight worth crows sat idle in a container yard. That is when SCORE stops being a model in textbook and becomes the framework that saves your company. 50 countries, 100 ports, 32 industries, 14 years. I have watched supply chains save companies overnight, and I have watched supply chains destroy companies in 48 hours. The gap between what is taught and what actually happens on the ground is humongous. That gap is exactly why I built this channel. 14 years of real operations decoded for you in a very simple manner. Every video will give you one thing: clarity on concepts, clarity on ground operations, and this year your supply chain perspective or global supply chain view is going to change tremendously. I'm glad you're here listening to me. Let us now begin. Look at what is on this slide. Every fact here I have lived it personally. There is a concept called supply chain resilience. Academics define it as the ability to anticipate, adapt, and recover from disruptions. The key phrase, single point of failure. One supplier, one port, one route. When that one thing fails, the entire supply chain stops. So we talk about resilience over here, and which is the most important practice in today's global supply chain. When COVID vaccines arrived, the world discovered that 80% of the existing cold chain infrastructure was not built for that. We failed to build the infrastructure for our COVID vaccine. That single point of failure cost lives. Supply chain resilience is not theoretical. It is about life and death. And trust me, in India operates some of the most complex supply chains on this planet. 1.4 billion people, 29 states, thousands of cities and villages, connected by supply chain that somehow works. And yet, India is almost invisible in the global supply chain management conversation. That is going to change now. This channel is going to talk about India in and out. Indian ports in south, west, east, north, everywhere. Indian freight corridors, Indian customs, everything is going to be discussed on this channel. Trust me, this is going to be a very interactive channel, interactive platform for all the global supply chain people. These are not just numbers. Let me tell you what that actually means. In supply chain, total landed cost means the real cost of moving a product from origin to destination, not just the purchase price. Freight, duties, insurance, storage, demurrage, detention, compliance, good manufacturing practice, ESG, everything. Most companies negotiate hard on purchase price and ignore the other 60 to 70% of what something actually costs. This is one of the most expensive mistakes in procurement. So, there have been shipments in my life stuck at the port, stuck at various places due to a lot of technical errors, you can say, like a wrong HS code or any other failure. And that is what we are going to discuss over here, and how it affects your landed cost and your balance sheet. 50 countries means I have navigated 50 custom systems simultaneously under pressure. 100 ports, I know the difference between how ports operate, whether it may be Nhava Sheva, Rotterdam, Southampton, New York, and many other ports. In supply chain, everything is connected. So Mr. Supply Chain over here is with 14 years of experience, and in these 14 years of experience I have met a lot of supply chain professionals. Some of the supply chain professionals are brilliant in theory, but they freeze in real crisis. Some of the supply chain professionals are brilliant operators, but they cannot explain why the system works. For me, both are incomplete. There is a famous phenomena called the bullwhip effect. A 5% increase in the retail demand becomes a 10% swing at the distributor, 20% at the manufacturer, and 40% at the raw material supplier. A small ripple at the front becomes a massive wave at the back. Most operators have seen this happen. Only those who understand the theory know how to prevent it. The best supply chain leaders I have worked with could walk out of a boardroom strategy session and straight into warehouse at midnight to solve a problem like this. They were not just firefighters, they were architects who could also fight fires. That combination is very rare. That is what we are going to build over here. And it is exactly what we are going to talk about the entire session. It's going to be real operations and deep theory together. Supply Chain Academia describes the modern operating environment or the modern operating system with a word called VUCA, which means volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. Every role I have held on this slide was a masterclass in operating inside VUCA. No textbook prepares you for it, only experience does. International freight and customs, clearing of shipments, negotiating freight rates across time zones. You cannot learn that in a classroom. E-commerce in Middle East, building operations while the orders are flowing, the data of the orders, the velocity there, data cleanliness, and all about data while the flow of the goods is going on. Building of fastest growing D2C brands in India, supply chain, several functions built. And through all of it, I never stopped developing myself with a lot of academics and review reports at all global level, whether it be digital magazines or institutions doing research on orbital spacecraft logistics. Because operations without theory is just firefighting. Trust me, you solve today's problem and walk straight into tomorrow's. Theory without operations is just kind of a storytelling. Beautiful frameworks that never touch the ground. I will make it touch over here. This channel is where theory and real operations meet. This is one of a kind. Now look at the right column, the gap column. In 1983, Peter Kralish published a framework that changed procurement forever. The matrix says not all purchases are equal. Strategic items, bottleneck items, leverage items, non-critical items, each requires a completely different strategy. And yet most companies I have seen buy everything the same way. They follow the same process for a critical raw material and a box of stationery as well. That is a gap. The gap costs people career and money to the organization. The professionals who lead the next decade are the ones who understand the why this gap is there, and they bridge the gap. Remember, everything on this channel is going to be free. It is not a teaser, it is not a lead magnet. The full depth every week for free. We are going to discuss push versus pull, CODP, forecasting. Now, CODP is customer order decoupling point. It answers one question. At what point does production stop being driven by forecast and start being driven by actual customer orders? That single decision determines your entire inventory strategy, your lead times, your service levels, and your working capital. We are going to go all on it for free. See, most companies I have worked with in India are pushing inventory downstream based on forecast, when they should be pulling based on actual demand signals, the live demand signals. The result is crores of inventory sitting in the warehouses, and also at the same time stockouts on the exact products customers actually want. Whether you are in Mumbai or a small town, you are going to get all these perspectives in depth, free every week forever. Now you can go through this grid, see the number of industries. We are going to apply score model on each of it, and still it won't be enough. And imagine the amount of knowledge, amount of ground exposure you are going to get when we discuss supply chain of each industry. The principles of supply chain are universal for every industry, but the application is completely different in every industry. Make a note of it. So, supply chain academics classify manufacturing strategies into archetypes. For example, MTS, which is make to stock, like fashion, FMCG, you produce based on the forecast. MTO, make to order, pharmaceuticals and industrial equipments, you produce only when order arrives. ETO, engineer to order, like aerospace, defense. Every product is custom designed. Same supply chain discipline, completely different strategies. If you confuse in all these things, things are tend to fall. So now when we talk about pharma cold chain, it requires validation, documentation, regulatory compliance, and chain of custody at every single step. Dairy cold chain requires speed above everything else. Product life is only for 3 days. Same temperature, same trucks, same warehouses. Completely different execution. That is why every industry on that grid gets its own dedicated video. Find your industry over here, comment with your industry, we will discuss it. We'll have a dedicated video with score model and maximum on that particular industry. See, understand, this is not for those who follow checklists. It is for those who convert checklists into maps, who see systems where others see steps. We are not going to follow simple steps, but we are going to build our own control tower for each industry and build strategy where others only complete tasks. Peter Senge said most people see straight lines. Event A causes event B. System thinkers see circles. Event A causes event B, which feeds back and changes event A. In supply chain, that feedback loop is everything. Your forecast drives procurement, procurement drives supplier behavior drives actual supply drives your next forecast. It is a circle, not a line. A checklist thinker sees a delayed shipment and escalates it. A system thinker asks, why did the supplier fail? Or which node in my network carries the vulnerability? That shift from checklist thinking to system thinking is what separates good from great. That shift is what this channel will accelerate and give you. So, research describes the supply chain maturity model. Stage 1 is reactive, you respond after problems happen. Stage 2 is proactive, you anticipate problems. Stage 3 predictive, you use data to forecast disruptions. Stage 4 adaptive, your supply chain reconfigures itself in real time. Most professionals in India or global are at stage 1 or 2, a very few are on stage 3 and 4. This channel takes you to stage 3 and beyond. If you are a student, the confusion you feel is not a weakness, it is a sign nobody has explained it properly yet. This channel changes that. This channel is going to be different from other channels. This is not going to be theory. We are going to discuss actual shipments, actual events on a lot of products. If you are an SCM professional, you have the experience. What you are building over here is a framework. And if you are in India, this channel is going to speak reality for you. Even if you are a global aspirant, deep supply chain knowledge travels across every border. Build it here, apply it anywhere. A vaccine from Belgium to rural India, how it is transported, we are going to work on that. A garment and order from your quick commerce or your e-com, everything is going to be discussed over here. Understand, behind every single one of those there is a supply chain professional who made 100 decisions. You will never see that. This channel is for that professional